Hey there, welcome everyone. My name is Alex Weisler, and I am the Senior Video and Digital Content Producer for JDC. And we're going to be having our Pride conversation with Andrew Belinfante from JDC Entwine. So let me invite him in just now, and we'll start to chat. I'm joining from New York. I hope everyone else is doing well. I see we've got some Ukraine joining. If folks want to put in the chat where they're from, that'd be wonderful. And let me add Andrew now. This is always the awkward. Been at JDC for 13 years, and I get the chance to have these wonderful conversations. And now we've got Andrew with us. Fantastic.
Hi,
Hey,
Alex.
Andrew, how are you?
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. So I just mentioned that I'm joining from New York. Where are you calling in from today?
I am in Los Angeles.
Fantastic. How's your day? How's your morning, I suppose?
It's good. Just getting started.
Nice, excellent. So Andrew's wonderful. I'll let him introduce himself, and then we'll take it from there.
Hi. Good to be with everyone. Happy to be going live. Happy Pride Month. Andrew Belinfante. Like I said, based in Los Angeles. Been at JDC for almost 9 years and have gotten to lead and develop leaders and visit some of the most incredible places in the world where JDC has such a rich history, and really grateful to be able to get to do that work with all of you, with our community, with our staff, and excited to be here to have a conversation about Pride Month.
Amazing. Yeah, it's fun to see everyone joining in. I see we've got Hungary, we've got Ukraine, we've got all sorts of places.
There are queer
So
Jews everywhere.
indeed, you'll find us all over. So you are the senior director of programs and organizational development for JDC Entwine, and I just want to unpack that a little bit before we dive in. For folks who don't know, obviously this is JDC and the Entwine account kind of joining together. What is Entwine, and what does your job look like there?
Great. Entwine is the young adult platform of the JDC. JDC has been around for 112 years and works in 70 countries. And part of what we do in our department is bring people to see JDC's work all over the world, to help them learn, develop a sense of cultural humility, meet other people, connect with global Jewry, and then bring those learnings back home with them so that they can take action in meaningful ways on behalf of global Jewish responsibility in their own lives and communities and with their own people. And my job is to lead all of our programmatic work and then help make sure that our staff have what they need to be able to do that work every day.
Beautiful. And I love that phrase, cultural humility. I think that that's not something that I really encountered before I started working at JDC and being in touch with Entwine. What does that mean exactly for you guys?
You know, what we believe really deeply is that when you encounter other people and you hear their stories and you get a chance, the meaningful opportunity to develop a sense of humility for the other. And what we know is that people across countries and borders and lines of difference communicate and behave in different ways, and none of those are right or wrong. It's just about the way the sort of mosaic of the Jewish world and global humans everywhere anyway need to coexist, to learn about each other, to not just have an awareness of who the other is, but to have a sense of humility around the way that you approach those conversations and those people and the way that you develop relationship with them, and that everybody's way of doing things in the world is worth learning about.
Amazing. And I think as we talk about pride, also this sense, right, that other is kind of in the eye of the beholder, or other is changing all the time. You're stepping into and out of the dance, only from a certain vantage point are you the other. Otherwise, there's this culture of belonging, and it keeps shifting and changing. So I'm really intrigued by how Entwine engages with queer Jews, with LGBTQ plus folk. Tell me a little bit more about what that's looked like, because I think there are very like structured ways, and then there's
Mhm.
really deeply infused kind of organic ways, not in these silos per se. I think it's all in conversation with each other. But what does that sort of approach look like philosophically and then tactically, I guess?
So philosophically, I'll start with, just because it's a little bit bigger picture, and I'll say that we we know, I said this in the beginning, there are queer Jews everywhere. We know there are Jews everywhere, and there are all types of Jews everywhere, Jews of color, people with disabilities, queer folks. And part of what we want to do is tell the story of all Jews and all people, and give you and the people who travel on our programs and who meet JDC communities worldwide a sense of understanding that there are different people everywhere. And so philosophically, one of the things we thought a lot about in the last few years is how we create spaces for people to participate in our programs from different affinity groups. So we have a Jews of Color trip that we run every couple of years. We have an LGBTQ trip that we run every couple of years. We piloted and ran our first uh, trip for people with disabilities, neurodivergencies, things like that. And part of that is not only learning about the story and the ways in which people live their lives all over the world, but sharing your own story and experiencing it, and also seeing that the way that I live my life and the person that I am and all of my identities uh, is validated and can meet people where they're at, and I have a story to tell too. And so fundamentally, on a philosophical level, we know that because people with different and varying and multiple identities live everywhere, the opportunity to connect them and bring global Jewry into the conversation is critically important. And then, particularly on the LGBTQ trip, we've run a lot of them. Starting in 2017, we've been to places like Argentina and Uruguay and Berlin and Prague and Budapest, and it's been an unbelievable addition to our slate of programs, because when you get 22 to 25 people in a room traveling for a week and meeting and learning the queer Jewish histories and stories of these countries, it's unbelievably profound and moving and life changing. And the way people come home from those experiences uh, is they're changed in a really beautiful way. And so we can go into detail on all of that and all the
Yeah.
ways they are, but it's really, really profound to be sitting in a room and hearing about whether it's a lesbian couple who got married in a synagogue and they were the first in the country to do that. That happened with us in Argentina, or sitting in a school in Uruguay and hearing about the trans kids who get to come to school and feel safe every single day. And those stories are endless, and they're all over the world. And so it's a real privilege to be able to bring those stories to people, and also to give people opportunities to experience them.
Beautiful, beautiful. And yeah, we have a comment. Someone put, I went on the LGBTQ trip to Prague and Berlin in October. It was a life-changing and life-affirming experience. So proof is in the pudding, absolutely.
Oh, that's so
Uh,
awesome.
I'm wondering, we can talk about a lot of different things, but I'm sure it's changing your life too. You've attended a few of these trips. You're part of designing and shaping them, but also you come back, you have the experience. I'm sure there's things you expect, things that are on the itinerary that you're so ready to sort of see in action, and things that land the way that you imagine they will, and things that surprise you and continue to
Yeah.
echo and ripple. What's that been like for you?
Um, I'll repeat that it really is, it changes who you are to hear people's stories and to learn about the ways they live their lives. One thing I'm thinking about in this question is the first time we ran this trip in 2017, we had an unbelievable group of young professionals and leaders who were coming from all different places, all different backgrounds, people who worked in HR, people who worked in medicine, people who worked in nonprofit. And we didn't actually change the curriculum or the itinerary structurally in any significant way. We ran a typical Entwine trip, and it happened to be for a cohort of about 22 queer Jewish young professionals. And one of the things we talked about a lot after that experience was, is this a typical Entwine trip for queer Jews? Or is this a queer trip, and is there a way that we actually should change or structure the itinerary and the curriculum in a way that actually highlights those stories and brings those stories to life? And ever since that trip, we did the latter. We fundamentally redesigned the curriculum. It's still rooted in Entwine's values and Entwine's theory of change and mission, and the itinerary stops actually became much more queer. And that has been unbelievable. One moment in particular that we added to the itinerary, particularly in Argentina, which was just fundamentally moving, was we got to go to a place in Argentina, a little park, like a not garden, so to speak, but almost like a playground,
Yeah, yeah.
where there were all these beautiful murals painted by this young trans activist named Effie. And her mother, she's no longer alive, unfortunately, but her mother was there to tell her story and to bring her into light and to share how important it is to raise a trans child and give them opportunities to create and explore and be creative in the world. And seeing her mother speak and tell that story, and also watching, her mother had different pieces of her art and a coffee table book, but then seeing the murals on the wall that Effie painted, it really connects you not only to your ancestry and your history as a Jewish person, but also as a queer person. And that is an experience I actually won't ever forget. That was fundamentally changing for me to hear that someone's story and someone's family actually supported them in creating art in the world, and that we're a part of that story in some ways too, is really, really beautiful.
That's beautiful. Yeah, yeah. And I wonder, it feels clear that for the participants, for you as Entwine staff and designing and leading these trips, but also for, the folks who are going on these trips, it's transformative. What do you think the impact is for the communities you're visiting? What kind of feedback do you get from the folks in Budapest or Berlin or Prague or Buenos Aires about what it's like to have this group of young Jews, young queer Jews, come and engage with them in this meaningful, intimate, lived-in way?
It's such a good question. I think all queer people will understand this. I mean, all people will understand this, but especially queer people. Um, Having an identity that's not a majority in the world can feel very lonely. And there are moments, of course, that we all have and that we all experience where we don't necessarily feel like we have other people in the world who understand us, whose identities match us, who can support us and validate us. Um, and so for the communities, I think to have it's hard to ignore a group of 20 plus people coming in and saying like we're all queer and we
I've
all
been
have
on
our
those Entwine trips, not the queer
right.
ones, but like,
It's
we don't come in quietly. It's a production.
exactly. And so, if to the extent that anyone in their community is trying to move things forward or trying to get a pride parade off the ground or trying to make progress in whatever small way that matters and is important for them, coming in validates that in so many ways. It tells them you're not alone. And I think that is really, really important.
And I think that's probably true of all the different trips you're talking about. What
Yeah,
it must look like for the Hungarian disabilities community to have that trip come, that sense of being witnessed and held by yes, a group of people like you're describing, but also by a big global Jewish organization with a real deep, rich history and legacy. This is not some sort of upstart or niche nonprofit doing these things. This is JDC. That does matter.
100%. I'm a little bit of a Jewish text geek. And there's a Mishnah that I've always really loved about, it's called in the Mishnah the claimant's stone. So a place where you claim things. It functions like a lost and found.
Mm,
But part of the story that we learn from the Mishnah is that if you lost something, that is where you go to retrieve it. But if you found something, that's where you go to give it. And
mm,
the text tells us in particular, you actually have to go there and wait for the person who lost their item to come and meet them and to give them what they lost and return their item to them. And I've always loved that story, not because it's a nice thing to find things and return them to their rightful owners, but because the person who found the item has to wait for the person who lost it.
mm,
And I always think about how important relationship is, how looking
mhm.
someone face to face is actually a critical part of the story. And we've all lost things, whether that's loved ones or items or any number of other things in our lives that we lose. And to know that somebody is not only going to return your item to you, but they're going to be in relationship with you and meet you there to actually give you that is such a powerful thing. And part of why we do these trips in Entwine is because we put people in the room, regardless of what they lost or
Yeah.
found, but that they actually get to meet face to face and build a relationship around whatever's going on for them in their lives. And that is especially true when global
Yeah.
queer Jews meet each other.
Beautiful. Yeah, we can't engage with the world passively. And I find myself thinking about with the Lost and Found, with this gorgeous text you're lifting up, that so much I think is found when we engage. So much is lost when we don't listen to the voices that are historically on the margins. And I wonder
That's
if
right.
queerness as a lens for even interacting with things that feel more normative, historic work, communities that look the way we always grew up thinking that they would. Like, what is lost when we don't lift up or acknowledge a queer perspective on our communities, on our traditions, on our texts?
Oh,
Or what
that's a
can we
deep,
find if we
yeah,
go there? Yeah,
that's a deep, deep, heavy question. And it's so much a part of queer history and the queer story. And it's a hard one to answer. And I have a particular answer that I will share.
sure,
And I also want to know what your answer to that question is.
sure. Yeah,
I think
I
about a
think
lot. Yeah,
yeah,
go
yeah.
for it.
Go on, go on. No,
No, you
no,
first.
you
You
you're
first.
ready to go. No, I think that it's like I was saying before. It's this push and pull, this sense which for me feels very like JDC, very Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh Lezeh, like the sense of being each other's guarantors. That our positions, our perspectives, our privilege, none of it's fixed. It's all situational. It's all evolving. It's all shifting. And I think that when we can lift up these historic voices on the margins, we can sort of see a kinder world. We can hold each other a bit more, and we can sort of see the things that we're sort of peeking behind the curtain or in the closet or whatever. There's wisdom there. There's treasures there, and there's people who that's not the closet for them. That's home, or that's not the margins. That's the center of the neighborhood. Like when we can move our perspective and reorient ourselves and the way we look at the
Mhm.
world, I think in discovering things from a new angle, we don't only see that story in a different way, we see ourselves in a different way. That's forward motion. It comes from actually moving your position.
Beautiful, beautiful. Um, and I'll add, well, I'll share my piece also, but I'll add onto that that Jews and queer Jews are not, they don't have to be on the margins, and part of the experience of going on this Entwine trip, and particularly our affinity trips, is actually acknowledging that queer Jews, or whether it's an affinity trip for Jews of color or anything, that those people are a fundamental and critical part of the fabric of that
Hmm.
society.
Hmm.
And it's actually, you don't have to go to the edges of the world to find people who are like you and whose identities match you, and that building that relationship and coming together around a meal or a Kabbalat Shabbat service or whatever it is in wherever country you're in, that's actually moving people from the margins to the center. And that's a
I
really
love that.
fundamental and important thing to do. To your question about what's lost, you know, Jews and queers have really interesting histories around loss. Obviously, the last couple of years has been particularly hard for Jewish people and for the state of Israel. We have World War II and huge devastation and the Holocaust and the loss of many, many Jews who could have had uh, more generations alive today. And queer people have that same history. You know, in the
Yeah.
AIDS epidemic and the AIDS crisis, we lost so many people. And one of the things, someone said this once, and I really have never been able to stop thinking about it. It's think about all the art that was lost
Mm.
from queer people. So I actually think there is creation and creativity in the world that both Jews and queers know could have existed, um, if we didn't lose those people. Think about like again, the doctors, the HR professionals, but also the film directors and the muralists and all of the people who actually create in the world and who move society
There
forward.
can be great art in human resources. We don't
Right,
want to knock
exactly.
art.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's about art and about so many other things. And there's so much that we have to offer as human beings if we develop that sense of cultural humility and we reach out and support other people and think about all the people who were lost in the AIDS crisis or in the Holocaust or on October 7th that are no longer creating or creating more people who are creating. That feels really powerful to me, and it's a connection I've always thought is critical between queer people and Jewish people.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks. I'm curious about, we've touched on it, but what the energy sort of feels like in these rooms as, I've been on a few Entwine trips. My JDC origin story was an Entwine trip to Moldova back in 2011, and I've since been on trips to Georgia and the United Arab Emirates. These core conversations, these hard and difficult
Mm.
and thorny and beautiful and important conversations are such a key piece of how Entwine structures these experiences. What is it like on your side of things as you're designing these to think about, how you create a space that's safe, but in the broadest sort of definition of that, that's safe, but also challenging and playful and probing. As like you're alluding to, it's a rough time out there for queer folks. It's a rough time for Jewish people. How are you kind of creating these communities, these rooms, these conversations that can hold a multiplicity of perspectives and navigate it together?
That's a good question. Can I say first that my origin story is also a JDC Entwine trip? I was actually applying to my role almost 9 years ago when they were launching the first LGBTQ
Oh
trip,
yeah?
and I got a Facebook message from you that said,
Oh
you should
wow.
go on this trip.
I don't remember sending that, but I'm happy to be part of your story. Okay,
And
cool.
so I actually took the job at JDC, but before my official start date was that first 2017 LGBTQ trip. So my origin story is both the LGBTQ Entwine experience, and you're a part of that
Nice,
story, and
nice,
it all sort
nice.
of happened around the same time that that I was
Which
starting this
which
9 year
cities
journey.
which cities was that one?
We did Argentina and Uruguay that year.
Nice, nice,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, it was great. And the truth is, I had seen Entwine trips posted for a very long time and always wanted to participate because they are incredible and looked amazing. But it wasn't until I was invited to the LGBT one in particular that I actually clicked that apply button and said, I'm definitely doing this, because I think what felt special to me was that not only my identity was being validated and that there was this opportunity I could participate in, as myself and bring that identity, but the opportunity to travel with other queer Jews
Hmm.
and to see the world through their eyes actually, it sparked that I have to go on this more than I want to go on this. And so that
Hmm.
was how that story started. Um, your question was about how we move people through the experience and create safe spaces for them. So Entwine trips are have three core values that are a fundamental part of every experience. The first one is kavanah, which translates to intention. What are my intentions for being in this place? What am I bringing here? What do I hope to learn about this place? How do I want to behave and act while I'm here? The second core value is arevut, which translates to guarantorship or mutual accountability or responsibility. What are the ways I want to interact with this community? What is my obligation to other Jews in the world? What are those Jews' obligations to me? And how can we work together to actually do the important work of global Jewish responsibility? And then our last core value on Entwine Trips is asiyah, which we translate to taking action. Okay, I set my intentions.
Hmm.
I know that I have a sense of responsibility for other Jews in the world. What am I going to do with that? Now that I have this knowledge, that I have this awareness, that I've developed and deepened my sense of cultural humility, where am I going to go with it? What am I going to do back home in my own community? What am I going to do on behalf of the Jews that I met here, or the queer people I met here, or any number of people who I interacted with who I believe deserve my arevut and whose arevut I
Hmm.
deserve? And
And
so
that
those conversations,
there's not a prescribed answer to that, but you have to be asking
no,
the questions. Where are you
that
going to take it?
actually,
Yeah.
exactly, that is hit the nail on the head. Who you are and the way you move through the world and your sense of responsibility for other people has to come from what you believe and who you are and the ways in which you want to make change on behalf of your identities or the identities you believe and the causes you believe need the most attention. And that can change and evolve too. And it doesn't have to be one thing that you decide. You can have multiple causes you care about, or the world can change overnight and all of a sudden you can say, hey, my priorities right now are, and my energy is going to be directed toward X thing. And so all of our curricular materials are couched in those three values, and we move people through the experience so that they're actually identifying and deciding, both individually and as a cohort, how they want to show up in the world and what their sense of arevut or mutual accountability or guarantorship for others means and how they want to enact it. And then one little addition or layer I'll add based on the specific question about creating the safe space for dialogue across difference. We think a lot and we talk a lot on our experiences about brave spaces. So we don't know actually going into X synagogue or Y school or Z senior living facility that that's going to feel safe for people. We
Hmm.
all bring
Hmm.
ourselves into those experiences. Going into an elderly facility with senior citizens for someone who has an ailing parent or
Hmm.
grandparent can be a really hard and emotional experience. And so what we try to reframe for people is not just, is this going to be safe or is it not? That
Hmm.
binary and that black and white doesn't
I love
totally
that.
exist because
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can't
yeah.
manufacture it. But can we encourage you to feel brave and go into this and say, here's what I need right now, and here's how I'm
Hmm.
going to show up, and here's what I am also going to request from my cohort and my group leaders and all of the people who I'm traveling with.
I love that. And I think that, right now we were talking about this a little bit yesterday, like for queer folks, for young Jews, some of these familiar spaces don't feel so safe, or it's not so easy to be brave. What kind of feedback are you getting from folks in, I don't know, the last year or two of trips and experiences about what this all means right now?
We are living in a highly polarized time, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that and to remember that. And um, what I like to tell people is your opinions are important, and what's more important is the values that guide those opinions. And so one of the things we try to do with people, especially in creating dialogue across difference, whether it's around world topics or current events or meeting the queer population there in whatever country you're in, and maybe saying, hey, that we're making more progress in the US or wherever we're coming from. Um, and I'm sad that that doesn't exist here, or any number of things you might feel about the ways different people behave and different societies function in the world. Um, Part of that process is naming your values, and why one of the reasons we do intention setting and kavanah so early in the trip experience is because it's really important to say, here's who I am and here's what I believe, and that's how I'm guiding my decision making or my action steps.
And in these sticky moments, you have a North Star to return to. This is what I said I'm here for. This is what
Yeah,
I need to sort of touch back to. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Um, I wanted to make sure these trips that you're talking about, which sound so incredible, this is not a thing of the past. There's another on the horizon, I think in 2027, right?
Yeah, we are currently planning and putting together our 2027 trip calendar. Really exciting locations coming your way, and in particular, LGBTQ plus trip is back on the map for 2027. So that should launch in the next couple of months, and we'll make sure people know about it. That's really exciting, and a host of
Amazing.
other travel experiences, whether you're in college and you want to participate in a broad program with us, or a global campus, which is a weekend with students from all over the world who are studying abroad, or an insider trip, or one of our leadership development programs.
Amazing, amazing. Two last things I think for me. If folks have questions, they should put it in the chat. I see that we're joined by a bunch of different people through the 25 minutes or so we've been together. I saw folks from Ghana, Romania, Moldova, all over joining in, which
Unbelievable.
is very cool, very JDC. Um, what keeps you coming to work every day? There are certainly I always feel this way about my job. There's got to be easier
Yeah.
stuff out there with less bureaucracy and less, stuff. And also, I don't think there's anywhere I'd be happier. I love it here.
That's so sweet.
What keeps you coming to work every day?
Before I answer that, can you tell the story about when you started at JDC, not necessarily feeling like you could share
Yeah, yeah.
about your own queer identity, and then like 10
Andrew
years
and I
or
were,
plus,
yeah,
you,
Andrew
you
and I
said this a
were
couple of
chatting
weeks
about
ago
this.
about your husband and feeling
Yeah,
comfortable.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Absolutely. So for folks who don't know me, a lot of my job is video production and storytelling around JDC's work around the world. And I've been at JDC since 2013. The travel and these video trips really started like 2016-ish. I got married the summer of 2016 and suddenly started going on these trips with my wedding ring and navigating how to sort of come out in the former Soviet Union or X or Y place in Europe or even in various communities in Israel and not always feeling like it was the safest or most natural thing uh, to be doing that and really, I don't know if it's code switching, but just being careful, being cautious, being
Mm,
intentional, but not like such a comfortable kind of intentional around all of this. And I think it's been my own journey of feeling so like received and loved and held by so many people in so many different communities that now it's not a question at all. Like I don't know where I would be. Ghana comes up because I mentioned that there was someone tuning in. Like not a particularly safe or comfortable place to be a queer person, and I know some of this is my American privilege and all this whatever, but like it felt important to me that I am who I am. Like I'm here
mm,
for 3 days. I'm visiting programs. This is me. This is my life. And to the particular story I think you're referencing, this was before JDC, but I was working for a Jewish news organization in 2011. And I was living in Budapest at the time for like I don't know, month and a half stint or so. And it was around the time that I was coming out and really felt like I was, returning to this phrase from before, like at the margins of Hungarian queer life and Jewish life and my own sort of comfort in my own identity. What did this look like? And so Budapest was this amazing city that I deeply love, but was, I think, wrapped up in some of these memories of shame or of like identity
mm,
formation. And 2 years ago, my husband, who's a rabbi here in New York, we were traveling for his sabbatical. We were based in Israel, but we were doing a lot of little Euro trips. I'm in the pews every Shabbat. I'm like very deeply engaged in his work. I know all the characters. He'd never been to Moldova or Hungary or Bulgaria or any of these places, so we did a lot of trips to sort of engage with the Jewish communities there. And we happened to be in Budapest for the weekend of Pride.
mm,
And it was such a amazing tikkun, bit of teshuva. I don't know, like I think it's Maimonides. Teshuva is like standing in the same place but making a different choice, right? So like to be there marching in the Pride Parade with my husband and my two kids, and the Jewish community was the front of the parade. The JCC director in Budapest, Marcel Keneche, is a gay man, and the JCC there does like a tremendous amount of outreach and also all these really interesting dialogue and connection bits between different minority communities, the Roma community, all sorts of different
Mm.
folks in Hungary. There they were at the front of the parade with the big banner with 17 or 19 or something different Jewish organization logos, JDC among them. Really incredible. Just this sense that I think it's a combination of like the story's evolving, and it's always your story. Like jump
Mhm.
in when you're ready to jump in, but the story is always there waiting for you to join it.
Yeah, I think that encapsulates it. It's such a beautiful story. I'm so happy you got to celebrate Pride in a way that felt both queer and Jewish and honored your identities and your husband's identities and your family. And it's just
Yeah,
what a cool thing. I mean, I hope
it was
that other
it was
people
awesome.
feel this too. But like, I have chills thinking about you celebrating in a different country and bringing yourself into the world and meeting other people in that place. And it's really,
Thank
in
you.
some ways, some of what you maybe lost in 2011, you found
Yeah,
at that parade.
yeah. I had to go to the Claimant's Stone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, as we conclude, what's your particular message for Pride this year? With everything we've been talking about, the state of the world, the yearning and the grief and the opportunity, all of it. What do you want people to hold on to as they exit this conversation and head back into their day?
Yeah, look, there are Jews everywhere, there are queer people everywhere, and there are queer Jews everywhere, and they're not at the edges of the story. They're actually very much part of the fabric of each of these communities, and they're a fundamental part of moving it forward, regardless of where their country or their society or their community um, holds space for them right now. And part of why we do the work we do, and part of why Entwine exists, is to make sure those stories are told and heard, and that your stories are told and heard, and that we come together and we build that and we make a better world than the one we inherited. So you're not alone. There are queer Jews everywhere, and we can give you opportunities to meet them and to engage with them and to build community with them and really create progress.
Amazing, Andrew. It's always a pleasure. Happy Pride,
Happy
and
Pride.
I will talk to you soon. Thanks
Okay.
everyone for joining in.
Thanks,
Bye.
Alex. See you soon. Bye.